Hello folks, I am Joey DeAngelis and welcome to Silent Links. Before I begin, I just want to apologize for the really bad lighting in this room. I don't have a full-scale lighting equipment, and literally the only piece of lighting equipment that I have is what's above me and these two lights. And I experimented with these two lights. It's not going to work out, and the picture might look really crappy at times, but since most of you have seen the film, I would like to presume hopefully you know what I'm talking about. I'll describe what's happening on screen. But anyway, Silent Links. Welcome to Silent Links, the series where I analyze the films by filmmakers and actors who were once famous in the silent era, but must now deal with the mysterious new challenge of talkies. Today's episode is the film that, in my opinion, started it all for animated films. Yes, there were feature-length animated films before this one. However, the animated film medium was never the same afterwards. The film I'm talking about today is Walt Disney's Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, a film released in 1937, and many critics have described as one of the greatest animation achievements of all time. However, before its release, it was called Disney's Folly because many people believed that the film would flop due to its massive costs. And yes, the film is rather expensive looking, but that's a testament to the films and Walt Disney's perseverance and other things that I will discuss in this review. In his youth, Walt Disney had seen a silent film version of Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and had also been told many of the famous fairy tales, so he decided that Snow White was a logical step for him to do as a feature-length film. However, there were other factors that were involved in the inception of Snow White. First off, the animation short was not dying out, but it wasn't becoming as profitable. Reason being, the costs were rising for these short animated films. Disney was trying to make them better and better. That is something you have to give Disney credit for. Disney always wanted to improve upon his product. So he felt that in order to make more money, in order to get more of a profit, they have to move on to the feature-length medium. But there were several problems that arose. One of those problems being, would people sit for an hour and a half and take the color information? Meaning, would people sit there for an hour and a half and would their eyes be able to handle the color? Similar to how people have headaches and your head hurts after watching a 3D movie, they had the same problems with the animated films, because obviously Disney wanted to do this in color. I mean, he wanted this to be extravagant. But would it work for a mainstream audience? Would audiences accept a feature-length animated film that was in color? And they did. However, it was a big risk, and the colors are gorgeous in this film, although you might notice they're a bit toned down. They're not as rich as, say, Pinocchio or Fantasia, because they were experimenting with this film. This was the first step. Another problem that Disney faced was that, would audiences care about the characters in an animated film? Now, in a live-action film, it's easier because you have real people in front of the camera. Well, maybe you could argue they're not really real people in their personality. Yeah, that's a bad joke. But anyway, in terms of the animated characters, these guys aren't there. These are drawings. Would audiences have an emotional attachment to Snow White and the other dwarf characters? Would they cry if Snow White died? Would they be upset if something bad happened to her? These are questions that the animators had to ask themselves, and these are questions Walt Disney had to ask himself. And that was one of the other challenges that animators had to face, was making these fairy tale characters into personalities that would create an emotional connection with the audience. That is something that was never really done before. Obviously, short films, yeah, you can laugh at them, but not every short animated film was a dramatic piece. And it was just kind of built on a series of gags or other visual cues. And they're impressive, but those individual stories can't carry an hour and a half structure. This is another challenge that this film faced. Animators at the Disney studios were not used to this structure of the feature-length film. It was very new to them. It was very modern. Not modern, but it was a strange concept that they had to deal with, and I think they did it well, even though I will say that there are points in Snow White where it does feel slower. But let me get to more of the emotional aspects of Snow White. The other thing with this movie is that the people actually move like real people. When you look at the Queen, yeah, she's an animated character, but she's moving more like a real person, which creates, a sense of fear with her, because she feels more real. And also makes the other characters feel real. But this scene in particular, one of the best scenes in the whole movie, where the huntsman is ordered to kill Snow White and bring the Queen her heart. This is an excellent scene. This is kind of reminiscent of D.W. Griffith, where the cuts in the film, exhibit emotional reactions. You see the huntsman in the background, but you see Snow White here trying to help the little bird help find his mother, or whatever the scenario is. She's trying to comfort the bird. Then he cuts back to the huntsman, who's making sure nobody's around. And you're like, no, please don't do that. You're cutting back to Snow White, and you're like, come on, you idiot, turn around. There's a guy behind you. And then you cut back to him. He's walking towards her. You see Snow White, consulting the bird, and then you cut back to the huntsman. Oh man! And then you see that the shadow close up. And then the shadow creeps up behind Snow White. All these elements of the mise-en-scène make the huntsman a foreboding, very frightening figure. However, and then you have the beautiful scene where he just drops the knife and he just breaks down on his knees. And audiences were genuinely concerned for Snow White's life. And when the huntsman breaks down, it feels real to a certain extent that he wouldn't kill her, because she's so innocent and so beautiful and so young. So that's exactly what the animators had to face with this. It's easier to do that with a live action film with real actors in front of you, but when you have to make a drawing, and you're so used to creating these really abstract characters like Mickey Mouse or the Three Little Pigs, and you're presented with a character like Snow White, then it gets a bit difficult. Now this, I'm going to present the sequence. Anyhow, Walt Disney made the decision to pick Adriana Castellati as the voice of Snow White. She grew up in, I believe it was an opera family, and one of the contenders for Snow White was Deanna Durbin before she was, really big and famous. But Disney said the voice didn't work out, so he picked this young woman. And I've heard in recent reviews that they really just don't care for the voice, and I can kind of see where they're coming from, but at the same time it doesn't bother me, and I feel that the way she's drawn and the way she speaks helps us, like this character. She's innocent, she's naive, and it makes us, we don't want anything bad to happen to her unless you're a cynical jerk. Of course, you have the seven dwarfs. Dopey, sneezy, sleepy, bashful, Doc, grumpy, and happy. The seven dwarfs, each one named strictly for its personality. Now, the interesting thing about the dwarfs is that they're the characters most people tend to enjoy in this film the most. And that is very reminiscent of other Disney films. When you look at Pinocchio, you enjoy the side characters more than you do the central character, Pinocchio. To me, Pinocchio is not the most interesting character. I don't hate him or anything, but he's just pales in comparison to like Geppetto, the Blue Fairy, Jiminy Cricket, and the other cast of characters. Then, of course, you have Beauty and the Beast, where you have the Lumiere, Cogsworth, Mrs. Potts, Chip. Those characters are very endearing. And even though I do like the characters in that film, I feel they're very strong, you come away with that film remembering the side characters. And the side characters are very important in a Disney film. Also with the mice in Cinderella. The other characters, like, whatever, it looks really pretty, but that's about it. Then you have like the mice and the rats. You care about the mice characters you really like, because they're funny. And the same thing happens in a lot of the other Disney films. And Frozen, which is the latest Disney film, I talked about it earlier this week. You have Olaf, the snowman, and you have Sven, the reindeer, as your comedic supporting characters that I could imagine kids would remember those aspects of the film the most. Now, you have the Queen and the magic mirror, and I feel they're very foreboding. I love the fog and the mist with the magic mirror. The magic mirror's expression really doesn't change. The mouth moves, but it doesn't change. And you have the Queen character who is, let me just pause right there. She was so stern, she's so serious, she never smiles, or if at all, rarely smiles. She's always just angry and just, if I did the entire review looking like this. And then she eventually transforms into the Wicked Witch, which is really a nightmare for a lot of young children. And that's when the Queen character honestly becomes more interesting. However, the artistic flares used are quite effective in both. I mean, they're both well-drawn, well-animated characters, and they move like real people. So that works out very, very, very well. Call me a sap, but this film has a grander emotional effect on me in my young adult years than it has in my childhood ever. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I've become so cynical, and to see something as simple as this is just so effective. And also seeing a cynical character like Grumpy cry is probably more emotionally effective as an adult than it is for a kid, because you think you're so strong, you think, oh, whatever, the world's horrible, and then you have an emotional connection with scenes like these. They're just so well executed. You have the shot of the forest animals outside, the rain, even though maybe the forecast didn't have rain and it just rains for whatever reason. More not for, for just to rain, but for an emotional effect. And those things, go for the subconscious. And, this really gets me every time I watch it. I rewatched it for the first time in a few years, a couple years back. And this always gets me. And to see, Prince Charming get Snow White back, kiss Snow White, and then the day is saved, it's just a nice happy ending. It gives you what your emotions want. It doesn't necessarily say, oh, logically, she should just sleep and whatever. But you know what? It happens because you want it to happen. As an audience member, you want Snow White and the Prince to get together. And you want the dwarves to be happy for them. And you want everybody to be happy except for the bad guys at the end. And that is the profound effect of Disney films. Now, on Silent Links, usually when I talk about a filmmaker or actor, their accomplishments are diminished in the sound era. Not diminished, but not as amazing, as impressive as their silent accomplishments. The reverse is true for Walt Disney. Walt Disney's sound films are some of the most famous films ever made, and Disney is still an empire to this day. Disney has the parks across the planet. The third highest grossing movie of all time was distributed by Disney, The Avengers. Disney owns Pixar, Disney owns Lucasfilm, which means Star Wars and Indiana Jones. Disney is still a titan, but it's a titan because of masterpieces like Snow White. Because the film was such a success and Disney took such a great risk that Disney has thrived for so long. And that is why I consider Snow White to be one of the greatest films ever made. It might not be the best Disney film, but is certainly, probably, most definitely, the most important Disney film. I'll see you later this week for my top 5 favorite Oswald the Lucky Rabbit shorts on Silent Film Saturday. See you guys later.